Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The fluorescent lights of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport hummed their familiar, soul-crushing melody as Maya Richardson shuffled through the terminal at midnight, her scrubs still bearing the faint stains of a 12-hour shift at Harborview Medical Center. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished floor with each step, a sound that, under normal circumstances, would have irritated her. Tonight, she barely noticed it. Her mind existed in that fuzzy space between exhaustion and hallucination, where the world felt slightly soft around the edges and her body moved on autopilot. She'd worked a double shift. Not by choice, but because Patricia called in sick. Patricia, who was never actually sick, just perpetually not feeling the shift. And the emergency department was short-staffed. 12 hours of trauma cases, confused patients, demanding families, and one particularly memorable incident involving a man who'd somehow gotten a pickle jar stuck on his hand. By the end, Maya's feet ached, her lower back throbbed with a dull, persistent complaint, and her patience had evaporated somewhere around hour 9. All she wanted was to get to Portland. Her friend Jess was getting married in 2 days, and Maya was supposed to help with setup, decor, and the vicious pre-wedding activities that brides insisted were essential bonding time. Maya loved Jess, had known her since they were 8 years old, and Jess had shared her chocolate chip cookies during recess. But right now, the thought of a 3-hour drive followed by wedding chaos felt simultaneously mandatory and impossible. She clutched her boarding pass in one hand and her carry-on roller bag in the other, her eyes scanning the gate numbers as she passed them. Gate 47, Gate 48. The airport was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that happened when flights were scattered throughout the night and most sensible people were sleeping. Maya stopped at a coffee kiosk, closed naturally, and sighed. She'd grabbed coffee at the gate. She'd done this dance 100 times before. Find gate, buy overpriced coffee, board aircraft, endure middle seat if she was unlucky, sleep fitfully against the window, arrive. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Did you board yet? Don't forget to text me when you land. Also, wear sunscreen in Portland. The sun is very harmful. Maya smiled despite her exhaustion. Her mother treated Portland like it was a tropical resort instead of a city in the Pacific Northwest that received approximately 300 days of rain per year. She typed back a quick thumbs-up emoji and continued walking. She was so focused on not falling asleep while standing that she almost walked past her gate. Gate 52 read, Dubai, Flight 447, now boarding. Maya's eyes moved to her boarding pass, Gate 52, Flight 447. She looked at the flight number on the screen, then back at her pass. A cold spike of adrenaline jolted through her system, cutting through the fog of exhaustion like a blade through water. She squinted at her ticket, reading each character with exaggerated care. Flight 447, Gate 52. Destination, Dubai. Her ticket was supposed to say Portland, Gate 52, Flight 312. No, Maya whispered to no one in particular. She turned the ticket over, as if the back might contain some alternate explanation. It didn't. No, no, no. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and opened her email. The confirmation stared back at her. Flight 312 to Portland, departing at 1:15 a.m., Gate 47. She'd printed the wrong boarding pass, or grabbed the wrong one, or... Actually, it didn't matter how she'd grabbed it. The fact remained, she was standing at the wrong gate, about to potentially board a flight to Dubai instead of Portland, which was approximately 6,300 miles in the wrong direction, and there was a gate agent actively scanning boarding passes right now. Excuse me, Maya jogged toward the gate desk, her exhaustion momentarily overridden by panic. I think there's been a mistake. I have boarding pass, please, the gate agent said without looking up. She was a woman in her 50s, with the kind of severe efficiency that came from working overnight shifts for 15 years. "Yes, I'm at the wrong gate. I need to get to Portland, not—" "Boarding pass," the agent repeated, extending her hand. Maya handed it over, watching as the woman scanned it into the system. There was a soft beep. The agent's eyes flicked up from her monitor to Maya's face, and there was a flash of something, was it amusement, before she handed the pass back. "You're all set," the agent said. "Have a great flight." "Wait, no. I need to go to Portland. I'm supposed to— Flight 447 to Dubai," the agent continued, pointing toward the jetway behind her. "Boarding is almost complete. You'll want to head on. They're calling final passengers." Maya's mouth opened and closed like a confused fish. "But I don't want to go to Dubai." The agent smiled, genuinely smiled, as if this were the most entertaining thing that had happened to her all week. "Then you should probably tell the pilot." It took approximately 30 seconds for Maya to convince herself that this was actually happening. She stood there, frozen, as other passengers brushed past her toward the jetway, roller bags clinking and carry-ons bumping against her shoulders. Her mind spiraled through increasingly panicked calculations, cancellation fees, hotels, the wedding. Jess would kill her. Actually, Jess would understand. Jess was understanding about most things, but also Jess had already paid the deposit on the group hotel room, and— "Are you getting on or not?" a man's voice said behind her, irritated and smooth as expensive whiskey. Maya turned. The man standing behind her was precisely the kind of person you'd expect to be standing in first-class boarding on an international flight. Tall, somewhere in his mid-30s, with sharp features and expensive casual wear that managed to look both relaxed and perfectly tailored. His dark hair was swept back from his forehead, and his eyes, a cool grey that reminded Maya of a winter sky, were fixed on her with the kind of focused attention that suggested he was not accustomed to waiting for much of anything. "I'm considering my options," Maya said. "Well, consider them somewhere else," the man replied. "You're blocking the line." Maya glanced behind him. There was no line. There was simply him, standing with the kind of posture that suggested he'd never slouched in his life, and the gate agent, who was now actively pretending not to find this entire situation hilarious. "I don't actually want to go to Dubai," Maya said, addressing both the man and the universe in general. "I got on the wrong flight. The gate agent won't help me. And I'm supposed to be in Portland." The man's expression shifted fractionally. "You boarded the wrong flight." "Yes." "By accident." "Yes." He stared at her for a moment, then at the gate agent, then back at Maya. His lips quirked in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "That's either incredibly stupid or absolutely legendary." "It's stupid," Maya said. "It's definitely stupid." "Well," the man said, stepping around her and toward the jetway, "welcome to Dubai. I'm sure it's lovely this time of year." He was gone before Maya could respond, elegant and efficient, exactly the kind of man who probably never accidentally boarded planes for continents he hadn't planned to visit. She stood there for another moment, weighing her options. She could demand to speak to a supervisor. She could refuse to board and explain that she was supposed to be going to Portland. She could cause a scene and probably get removed from the airport by security. Or she could get on the plane, fly to Dubai, figure out what to do when she landed, and possibly just accept that this was the universe's way of telling her something about her life choices. Maya took a deep breath. "I'm getting on the plane," she announced to the gate agent. "I assumed," the agent said, now openly grinning. The first-class cabin smelled like leather and expensive cologne, a scent profile that immediately made Maya feel out of place in her wrinkled scrubs. She shuffled down the aisle, her carry-on catching on seat backs, very aware that she looked like she'd been hit by a truck and dressed in hospital-issued clothing. Most of the other passengers were already seated, arranged in the kind of casual luxury that suggested they flew internationally as casually as other people went to the grocery store. Her seat was 42A. She found it midway through the cabin. A window seat beside a man who was definitely not supposed to be beside a woman in dirty scrubs at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was the man from the gate. He looked up from his phone as she approached, and his expression shifted from blank to vaguely amused when he realized she was his seatmate. "You," he said. "Me," Maya confirmed, settling into the seat with as much dignity as one could muster while wearing what appeared to be a stain of something that might have been blood, but was hopefully ketchup. "Hi. Sorry about—" She gestured vaguely at the entirety of her existence. "All of this." "All of what?" the man asked, though his eyes suggested he was already enjoying himself immensely. "Existing," Maya said, "particularly existing here." He actually laughed. A genuine laugh, not the polite laugh of someone being socially obligated to find something amusing. It was a good laugh, warm and unexpected. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand once the seatbelt sign had been illuminated and takeoff seemed imminent. "Maya," she said, shaking it. His grip was firm, his hand warm. "And I still have no idea what I'm doing on this flight." "Neither do any of us," Ethan said, settling back into his seat as the plane began to taxi. "We're all just pretending we know what we're doing on this flight. You're just honest about it." "That's either very philosophical or very cynical," Maya said. "Probably both," Ethan replied. "Get some sleep. You look like you've had a day." "I've had a day and a half," Maya corrected. She leaned her head against the window as the plane accelerated down the runway, and somewhere between takeoff and reaching cruising altitude, she actually did fall asleep. She didn't see Ethan watching her, the way his expression softened slightly, the way he adjusted the blanket when the flight attendant offered him one, ensuring it would also cover her. She didn't see him smile to himself or hear him mutter, "Wrong flight, right?" as if he found something in that phrase both amusing and oddly significant. All Maya knew was that for the first time in 12 hours, her body finally relaxed, and for the first time in much longer than that, Ethan Blackwell found himself genuinely interested in something other than a spreadsheet. Maya woke up to the sensation of her neck screaming in protest. She'd slept at an angle that no human spine was designed to accommodate, her head pressed against the cold window of the aircraft, her mouth slightly open in a way that she fervently hoped hadn't involved any drooling. The cabin was dim, lit only by the scattered glow of reading lights and the pale blue of a few phone screens. Outside the window, there was nothing but darkness and the occasional flicker of wing lights cutting through it. She straightened up slowly, working her neck through a series of gentle rotations that hurt in the way that promised a serious crick by morning. Her mouth tasted like something had crawled into it and expired. Her scrubs were wrinkled beyond the point of redemption, and she was fairly certain there was now a small puddle of drool on the window. Perfect. To her right, Ethan was awake, working on a laptop with the kind of focused intensity that suggested he hadn't slept at all. He was still wearing his cashmere sweater, cream-colored, probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, and he looked precisely as put together as he had when boarding, which seemed unfair and vaguely supernatural. He glanced over when she shifted in her seat, and his expression cycled through something that might have been concern before settling on amusement. "Welcome back to the land of the living," he said. "What time is it?" Maya's voice came out hoarse. She cleared her throat. 4:45 in the morning, Dubai time." He paused. "You've been asleep for about 7 hours." Maya's eyes widened. 7 hours. 7 hours meant the flight was nearly complete. 7 hours meant that she was actually, genuinely, undeniably on her way to Dubai. 7 hours meant that somewhere back in Portland, Jess was probably wondering why she hadn't landed yet, and her mother was probably having a minor heart attack, and her job was probably going to wonder why she wasn't showing up for her next shift. "Breathe," Ethan said calmly. "You're doing that thing where your face goes very pale and your eyes get very wide, and it's alarming." "I'm not breathing." Maya wasn't entirely sure that was a question. "You are, but ineffectively, shallow and fast, very anxiety-coded." He closed his laptop and turned to face her more directly. "So, Dubai, how's that hitting you now that you've had sleep?" It's hitting me like I accidentally boarded a flight to a different continent, and I have no plan. No clothes, except the ones I'm currently wearing, which appear to be stained with what I'm choosing to believe is ketchup. And I'm supposed to be in Portland, helping my friend prepare for her wedding in approximately 36 hours. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What are you going to do?" "I have no idea," Maya said honestly. "Cry? Call the airline and beg for a refund? Hitchhike back to Seattle? I genuinely don't know. I haven't thought this far ahead because I was unconscious." "You could stay." Maya blinked at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "Stay," Ethan repeated, "in Dubai, for a few days." "Nah, I don't know you," Maya said slowly, as if speaking to someone who might not understand basic social parameters. "And I don't think you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, because that would be insane." "Marginally insane," Ethan corrected. "Not completely insane. There's a difference." "Is there, though?" He smiled. That same smile that had appeared briefly at the gate, the one that suggested he found her amusing in a way he probably didn't find most people amusing. "You got on the wrong flight. You're clearly not someone who does things like that ordinarily. So here you are, on a flight to Dubai. Might as well see Dubai." "I can't afford Dubai," Maya said. "Dubai is not a place for people who wear hospital scrubs and eat cereal for dinner, because it requires no cooking. What if it were free?" "It's not free. Flights back to Seattle cost money. Hotels cost money. Everything here probably costs money. Lots of money." "What if I covered it?" Ethan asked, and he said it so casually, the way someone else might offer to buy someone a coffee, that it took Maya a moment to process that he'd actually said those words out loud. "You would cover what exactly?" "Hotel. Whatever you need while you're here. A flight back to Seattle when you've decided you've had enough Dubai. You would pay for a random woman you met on a plane because, Ethan said, "I find you interesting. And interesting things are rare for me, and I'm bored." "Those are terrible reasons," Maya said. "They're honest reasons," he replied, "which is more than most people give you." Maya stared at him, trying to pass whether this was some kind of elaborate test, or if she'd somehow boarded a flight to Dubai with an actual alien. "This is insane." "You're insane. I'm insane for even considering this. This is how people end up on true crime podcasts." "Fair," Ethan acknowledged. "Though I should mention that I'm relatively well known. Ethan Blackwell, tech company founder, occasionally interviewed by financial publications. It would be quite the scandal if I committed serial crime against a woman who got on my flight. Terrible for my stock price." Maya pulled up her phone and, despite the horrifying Wi-Fi charges she was about to incur, typed his name into Google. The results were immediate and comprehensive. Ethan Blackwell, founder and CEO of Blackwell Systems, a company involved in something mysterious that probably involved artificial intelligence and blockchain and other things that made people at parties seem very smart. Estimated net worth somewhere in the hundreds of millions range. Occasionally photographed at tech conferences, looking vaguely unimpressed with everything. "You're actually rich," Maya said. "I'm actually rich," he confirmed. "And you want to pay for a woman in dirty scrubs to stay in Dubai because you're bored." "I'm paying for you to stay in Dubai because you're the first interesting thing that's happened to me in approximately 4 years, and you smell like disinfectant and honesty, which is refreshing." He paused. "Also, you're right about the scrubs, but I can fix that." "No," Maya said firmly. "This is insane. I'm not doing this. I'm going to land in Dubai, I'm going to call the airline, and I'm going to get on the next flight back to Seattle, and then I'm going to have a very serious conversation with myself about how to prevent my own stupidity in the future." "Okay," Ethan said, which was not the response she expected. "That's your choice. But think about it. You've already paid for the wrong flight. You're already here. The damage, as they say, is done. You could go back to Seattle, to your life of double shifts and hospital scrubs and cereal dinners. Or you could spend 3 days seeing if Dubai is worth the accident that got you here." "Those aren't actually equivalent options," Maya said. "Aren't they?" "Nay," he settled back in his seat. that faint smile still playing at his lips. "You're going to have to explain to everyone why you suddenly went to Dubai instead of Portland. You're going to disappoint your friend. You're going to have to deal with consequences either way. At least if you stay, you get the experience to show for it." Maya wanted to argue with this logic. The problem was that it was actually frustratingly somewhat sound. She was already in Dubai. She'd already missed the wedding preparations. The damage was done. Her job wouldn't care if she took 3 days of unexpected leave. She had the PTO available, and it wasn't like the emergency department would miss her that much. And Jess, while disappointed, would probably eventually forgive her, especially if the story was interesting enough. "I would need actual clothes," Maya heard herself say, "not just scrubs. And I would need to call everyone and explain what happened." "Easily accomplished," Ethan said. "I have a hotel suite at the Burj Al Arab. There's a spa, there's shopping. There's everything you could possibly need." "The Burj Al Arab? Isn't that like the most expensive hotel in the world?" "In the top 5, Ethan agreed. "But yes, I can't stay at one of the most expensive hotels in the world," Maya said. "You can," Ethan said. "You're doing it right now, technically. Might as well enjoy it." The plane began its descent. Outside the window, the sky was starting to lighten toward dawn, painting the darkness in shades of deep blue and grey. Below them, Maya could see lights, the city of Dubai, sprawling and golden and absolutely real. She had to make a decision. Go back. Be responsible. Explain the disaster to everyone. Try to salvage some element of the wedding. Spend the next week feeling guilty about having accidentally boarded a flight to Dubai. Or stay. Be irresponsible. Trust a stranger who happened to be a billionaire. See what Dubai looked like in the daylight. Have a story that was too strange not to tell. "I would need to be able to leave whenever I wanted," Maya said. "No complications, no strings. If I decide tomorrow that this was a mistake, you cover my flight back and that's that." "Agreed," Ethan said immediately. "And I need to be able to call my friend and explain that I'm not coming to her wedding because I accidentally boarded the wrong flight. She'll think I'm insane, but she's supportive enough that she'll eventually laugh about it." Also easily accomplished. And," Maya continued, "you need to understand that I'm a person who has spent the last several years working 60-hour weeks in an emergency room, and I have very low expectations for how to enjoy myself, and I might be incredibly boring or incredibly annoying or both." "Noted," Ethan said. "I'm willing to take the risk." The wheels of the plane touched down on the tarmac with a gentle bump. They were landing. Dubai was no longer theoretical. It was concrete beneath them, real and immediate and completely unexpected. "Okay," Maya said, and the word felt momentous, like she was agreeing to something much larger than a 3-day vacation. "Okay, I'll stay." Ethan's smile widened. "Good. Welcome to Dubai, Maya Richardson." "I'm still mad about this," Maya said, even as relief and excitement were beginning to curl in her stomach. "I reserve the right to be mad at you for letting me do this." "That's fair," he said. "You can be mad at me in the Burj Al Arab. It's a very nice place to be mad." The Dubai airport was chaos made glossy and efficient. Maya moved through baggage claim in something of a daze, watching as Ethan glided through the airport like someone who'd been born expecting everything to accommodate him, which, she was beginning to understand, he had been. A driver was waiting for them, with a sign that said Mr. Blackwell in neat letters. A car was waiting, a sleek black Mercedes that smelled like leather and air freshener. Ethan's phone buzzed constantly, texts and calls that he ignored with the kind of practiced ease that suggested his time was valuable enough that he could simply choose not to spend it on technology. "Don't you need to work?" Maya asked, as the car pulled out into the Dubai morning, the sun rising gold and insistent over the sprawl of the city. "I have people who work for me," Ethan said. "That's the entire appeal of being rich, delegating my responsibilities to competent people so I can spend time doing interesting things instead. That's either very smart or very irresponsible." "Again," Ethan said, Probably both. The Burj Al Arab rose before them like something out of a fever dream, a sail-shaped building of white and gold, impossibly elegant against the blue of the sea. The lobby was all marble and soaring ceilings, decorated in the kind of luxury that made Maya feel distinctly underdressed in her hospital scrubs. "The suite is on the 58th floor," the concierge said, and it took Maya a moment to realize that the concierge was speaking to her, not just to Ethan. "If there is anything you need, anything at all, please don't hesitate to call." The elevator was glass. It opened directly into the suite, a suite that was larger than most apartments, decorated in whites and golds and blues, with windows that offered a view of the entire city spreading out below them like something that belonged in a photograph, not in reality. Maya walked to the window and stared. "Okay," she said quietly. "I think I'm starting to understand why you wanted me to stay." "It's a pretty view," Ethan agreed. He was watching her, not the city. She could see his reflection in the glass. "But that's not why I wanted you to stay." "Why then?" She turned to face him. "Because," he said, "you're the only person I've met in a very long time who looked at me like I'm just a regular person. Not like I'm a wallet with a face, not like I'm a problem to be solved or an opportunity to be exploited, just like I'm someone who got on the same wrong flight as you." Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she said the only thing she could think of: "I need to call my friend." "Of course," Ethan said. "The number should work from here. I'll be in the office if you need me." He left her alone in the suite, alone with the view and the reality of what she'd agreed to, alone with her phone and the conversation she was about to have. It took her 7 minutes to gather the courage to dial. Jess answered on the second ring, still half asleep. "Maya, why are you calling at... What time is it even there?" "It's early morning," Maya said. "I'm calling from Dubai." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, what?" "I got on the wrong flight," Maya said, and then, because there was no other way to explain it, she told her the truth. By the end of the story, Jess was laughing so hard that she was crying. "You boarded a flight to Dubai by accident, and a billionaire offered to cover your hotel. Oh my God, Maya, oh my God, this is the most insane thing you've ever done. I'm so proud of you. Your wedding? We'll survive without you for 3 days, Jess said. My mom will probably find some way to blame this on my father, which will create an entertaining distraction. Go, see Dubai. Do something impulsive and ridiculous for once in your life. God knows you've earned it." When Maya hung up, she was smiling despite the absolute insanity of her situation. She had 3 days in Dubai. She had a billionaire who found her interesting. She had a view that made her feel like she was dreaming. And for the first time in years, she felt like her life was actually beginning to happen to her, rather than happening around her while she worked double shifts and ignored everything else. She changed out of her scrubs and into the plush robe provided by the hotel, and watched the sun rise over Dubai, and wondered what came next. The spa at the Burj Al Arab was a temple to human indulgence. Maya sat in a massage chair that seemed to understand the specific location of every muscle knot in her body, while a woman named Layla worked on her feet with the kind of expertise that suggested she'd spent years perfecting the art of foot care. "You work in a hospital?" Layla asked, examining Maya's hands with professional concern. "Emergency department," Maya confirmed. 12-hour shifts. Standing most of the time. "Your body is very tense," Layla said diplomatically, which was apparently the professional way of saying you are basically a walking knot of stress and poor life choices. Ethan had arranged the spa appointment with the kind of casual efficiency that suggested he made a habit of transforming people's lives through the application of luxury services. He'd also arranged for someone to take Maya shopping. Not to the malls that tourists visited, but to the kind of boutiques where the staff knew his name and seemed unsurprised that he was bringing in a woman in hospital scrubs who needed a complete wardrobe overhaul in approximately 4 hours. By the time Maya left the spa, her feet felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who had never spent a shift standing on concrete floors in a busy emergency department. Her skin felt softer, Her muscles felt less like angry ropes and more like actual human tissue. The woman in the mirror looked like someone who had slept more than 7 hours total in the last 48 hours, which was a significant improvement over baseline. Ethan was waiting in the lobby, looking at his phone with that same faintly irritated expression he seemed to reserve for technology in general. "Better?" he asked, looking up as she approached. "Aggressively better," Maya said. "I'm not sure I remember how to have feet that don't hurt." "You'll adjust," he said. "Come on, I want to show you something." The car took them away from the waterfront, away from the glittering hotels and the manicured beaches, into the older part of Dubai. This Dubai was different: narrower streets, traditional architecture painted in whites and blues, the smell of spices and salt water heavy in the air. There were people here, actual residents going about their lives rather than tourists taking photographs. Ethan led her through the gold souk, a marketplace where vendor after vendor displayed jewelry in impossible quantities, every surface glittering with gold and silver and precious stones. The vendors called out greetings to Ethan. They knew him, which shouldn't have been surprising but somehow was. "You come here?" Maya asked, following him through the crowded corridors. "Sometimes," Ethan said, "when I want to remember that not everything is about innovation or quarterly earnings or disruption of industries." They emerged on the other side of the souk, and Ethan led her to a small cafe, little more than a counter, and a few tables squeezed into a corner space that probably paid a fraction of what more prestigious establishments charged for rent. "This is my favorite place in Dubai," he said. "The coffee is extraordinary, and the owner doesn't care who I am." The owner, a man named Hassan with a weathered face and sharp eyes, greeted Ethan with casual warmth but no particular deference. He made coffee with the kind of care that suggested he treated this task as an art form, pouring and steaming and crafting until the result was something that smelled like heaven. Maya took a sip and made an embarrassing noise of pleasure. "Right?" Ethan was smiling. "That's why I come here." They sat at a small table overlooking the souk, and for the first time since boarding the plane, Maya felt like she was actually seeing Dubai. Not the glittering tourist version, but something more genuine. People moved through the marketplace with purpose. Children ran between vendor stalls. The light fell in specific angles that seemed designed to highlight the beauty of worn brick and faded paint. "Tell me about your life," Ethan said suddenly. "My life?" Maya laughed. "It's not very interesting. I work a lot. I see my friends when I'm not working. I read before I fall asleep, which is usually immediately. I make a mean scrambled egg. That's about it." "You do it alone," Ethan observed. "The double shifts. You didn't complain about them to me, you just accepted them." "Someone has to staff the emergency department," Maya said. "If I don't take the shifts, someone else does. It's not a burden I'm uniquely carrying." "But you do carry it," he said, "consistently, without complaint." Maya shrugged. "What's the alternative? Quit medicine because the hours are bad?" "I wanted to be a nurse. I knew the hours would be bad. I just didn't anticipate how bad they'd actually feel in practice." "Do you like it, being a nurse?" "Most days," Maya said. "I like helping people. I like knowing that I'm good at something difficult. I like my co-workers, even when they're terrible. I like that there's always something happening. But I also like sleeping more than 5 hours in a row, and I like having hobbies beyond finding time to shower, and I like the idea of maybe dating someone who isn't a fellow healthcare worker who understands that scheduling around my shifts is basically impossible." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I haven't dated anyone seriously in 4 years," he said, "since the company went public. It's hard to trust people when they see you as an asset rather than a person." "That sounds lonely," Maya said carefully. "It is," he agreed. "But it's also efficient. Dating is basically a distraction from work. I've become very good at eliminating distractions." "That sounds terrible," Maya said. He laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. "It is, probably. I'm honestly not sure anymore what normal feels like. I've been building this company since I was 23. I'm 36 now, so that's 13 years of basically no life outside of work. You're taking vacation, Maya pointed out. You're at a vacation resort in Dubai. That's not nothing. I'm not here on vacation, Ethan said. I'm here because there's a tech conference and the company is considering expansion into the Middle East market. So I need to meet with investors and potential partners and generally pretend to be interested in growth projections and market penetration. The fact that it's in Dubai is coincidental. So I'm not just a random woman you decided to take on a vacation, Maya said slowly. You're literally just adding me to your work trip because I accidentally boarded your flight. You're significantly more interesting than the investors I was going to meet with, Ethan said. Is that better or worse from a moral standpoint? That's worse, Maya said. That's definitely worse. I'm being used as a distraction from work. Eh? You're being used as a reminder that there's a world outside of work, Ethan corrected, which I clearly need, given how pale and sleep-deprived I look compared to you after your spa treatment. You look fine, Maya said. And then because she was apparently honest, even when honesty was potentially dangerous, she added, You look like a person who has a very comfortable life that he somehow managed to make incredibly empty. She waited for him to be offended. Instead, he nodded slowly. That's accurate, he said. I've achieved all the things I was supposed to achieve. I'm rich, I'm successful, I'm influential in my industry. And I wake up most mornings wondering what the point is, which is embarrassing because I should be grateful, and I am. But gratitude doesn't fill the same space that purpose does. So that's why you let me stay, Maya said. Not because I'm interesting. Because you're lonely and desperate enough that a woman who accidentally boarded your flight seems like potential entertainment. And I let you stay because you asked me why I wanted you to stay, and I told you the truth instead of lying, Ethan said. Which I almost never do. Most people don't want truth. They want comfortable lies. They want me to be a character in a story that makes them feel better about themselves. You're asking actual questions. The coffee was getting cold. Hassan called something in Arabic to someone in the back of the cafe, and a moment later, fresh pastries appeared on their table, small, flaky things, dusted with sugar and filled with nuts. I'm going to disappoint you, Maya said. You understand that, right? I'm not a magical person who will fix your life because I accidentally boarded your plane. I'm a tired nurse who makes scrambled eggs and reads before falling asleep. I'm not going to inspire you to reconnect with your humanity or whatever. I know, Ethan said, but you're going to be here for 3 days, and we're going to spend time together, and maybe that will be enough. Maybe it won't, but at least it will be something other than work. They spent the afternoon exploring the older parts of Dubai, the heritage areas, and the traditional architecture, the places that Ethan said tourists rarely visited because the Instagram potential was limited. They walked along the creek, watching the abras, small water taxis, move back and forth between the two sides of the waterway. They browsed through spice markets that smelled like the entire world, condensed into narrow passages. They sat and watched the sun move across the sky, changing the light from harsh and gold to soft and amber. At one point, Ethan bought Maya a scarf from a vendor. Pale blue silk with gold threading, the kind of thing she would never have chosen for herself, but somehow looked perfect once it was around her shoulders. For the evening, he said, the desert winds can be cold when the sun goes down. They had dinner at a restaurant on the water, the kind of place that existed primarily for tourists, but had somehow managed to maintain actual quality. The food was spectacular. Grilled fish so fresh it seemed to still remember the sea, rice fragrant with cardamom and cinnamon, dates stuffed with almonds that tasted like concentrated sweetness. I have a confession, Maya said, somewhere between the second course and dessert. I'm terrified of this, of being here, of having said yes to this. I made a decision at 2 in the morning while sleep-deprived, and now I'm living with that decision, and it's surreal." "What are you terrified of specifically?" Ethan asked. "That I'll go back to Seattle, and this will have been a strange interlude that doesn't change anything. That I'll think about Dubai and you and this experience, and I'll feel sad about the fact that my regular life doesn't contain this kind of adventure or beauty or unexpected kindness from strangers. That's not actually the worst outcome," Ethan said. "Most people go through their entire lives without having unexpected adventures. The fact that you're having one, even if it doesn't change everything, is still significant." "Is it, though?" Maya asked. "Or is it just a brief disruption before everything goes back to normal?" "Does normal have to be the destination?" Ethan countered. "Can't it just be what happens between the interesting things?" Maya didn't have an answer to that, so instead she asked, "Why are you being so nice to me? I told you I'm bored and you're interesting." "But there's more than that," Maya said. "People don't just do this. They don't cover hotel bills and spa treatments and take people to their favorite coffee shops because they're bored. They do it because they want something. Un deal. Maybe I want to remember what it's like to just exist without an agenda," Ethan said. "You've been here for less than 24 hours, and you've already asked me more real questions than most people ask me in a year. You've also criticized me, challenged me, and told me that my life is empty. That's not something people usually do to billionaires." "That's because it's a bad strategy," Maya said. "If you want something from someone with money, you're supposed to be nice to them. And yet here you are, being honest." "I was raised to be honest," Maya said, "even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable." Ethan studied her across the table. "I think I'm going to like the next 2 days," he said quietly. They took a desert safari the next morning, Ethan's idea, which surprised Maya because he seemed like someone who would find outdoor activities to be generally inefficient and sweaty. But he arranged it with the same casual ease he applied to everything else, and they found themselves in a Land Rover heading out into the empty expanse of sand that surrounded the city. The desert was nothing like Maya had expected. She'd imagined endless, featureless dunes, but the reality was more complex. Formations that shifted in the light, colors that ranged from white gold to deep brown, depending on the angle of the sun. It was impossibly vast and incredibly beautiful, and made her feel very small in a way that was somehow comforting. Ethan sat beside her in the vehicle, and for once, he didn't seem like a billionaire or a tech founder or someone operating on a higher level of existence than regular humans. He seemed like someone who was as overwhelmed by the vastness of the desert as she was. "I've been here 3 times for business," he said, "and I've never done this." "Why not?" "I didn't think it was worth the time," he said. "Seemed inefficient, but being out here," he gestured at the landscape, "it puts things in perspective." They watched the sunset from the middle of the desert, the sun dropping like it was falling into the sand itself, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and red that seemed designed to be impossible, but were somehow absolutely real. Maya took approximately 40 photographs and only felt slightly embarrassed about it. At the desert camp, they sat around a fire with other tourists, ate traditional food, and watched a belly dancer perform with the kind of joyful energy that was clearly genuine rather than performative. An older woman sitting next to Maya, German possibly or Austrian, turned to her and said, "Your boyfriend is very handsome." Before Maya could correct her, Ethan said smoothly, "Thank you. She's beautiful, isn't she?" And he put his arm around Maya's shoulders in a way that was casual and warm, and somehow felt like the most natural thing in the world. Maya didn't correct him. She just sat there with his arm around her, watching the fire and the sky and the people who'd come from all over the world to stand in the desert and watch the sunset. Later, back at the hotel, they sat on the balcony of Ethan's suite, the suite that had become their suite in the way that spaces become when 2 people share them long enough. The city glittered below them, and the Persian Gulf stretched out beyond the city, dark and infinite. "Tomorrow's your last full day," Ethan said. "I know," Maya said. "What happens after?" "I go back to Seattle," Maya said. "I explain to everyone that I accidentally boarded a flight to Dubai and spent 3 days there with a stranger. They'll think I'm insane. Some of them will think it's romantic. My mother will worry that I've developed poor judgment, and then I'll go back to work, and my life will continue exactly as it was before." "What if it didn't have to?" Ethan asked. Maya turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Ethan said carefully, "that I'm aware this is complicated and probably inadvisable and potentially a terrible idea. But I also think that you and I have something that's worth exploring. I know that sounds like something out of a bad movie, and I know that I'm basically a stranger who happens to be rich enough to make exploring things easy, but I'm asking anyway. What if this didn't end tomorrow? We live on different coasts," Maya said practically. "I have a job, you have a company. We barely know each other. We could learn," Ethan said. "I can fly to Seattle. You could visit New York. We could see if this is something that works in regular life, or if it only works here in Dubai in this strange bubble where we're both not quite ourselves." "You're bored again," Maya said. "You're looking for a distraction that's more sophisticated than a weekend." "Maybe," Ethan said. "Or maybe I'm being honest, because you asked me to be honest. And the honest thing is that I find you compelling in a way that I haven't found anything compelling in a very long time." Maya wanted to say no. She wanted to say that this was exactly the kind of decision that was made in travel moments and didn't translate to reality. She wanted to protect herself from the inevitable disappointment of returning to her regular life and discovering that whatever this was existed only in Dubai. But she thought about the last 2 days, the spa, the souk, the desert, sitting around a fire watching a sunset. She thought about how Ethan had looked at the desert like he was seeing something true for the first time in years. She thought about how it felt when he put his arm around her at the camp, casual and right. "This is a terrible idea," she said. "Monumentally terrible," Ethan agreed. "We're probably going to regret this." "Possibly," he said. "But—" Maya paused. Okay, let's try. But we need to be honest with each other. If this doesn't work, we need to be able to admit it without making it weird." "Agreed," Ethan said. He took her hand, the gesture simple and small and somehow monumental. "Welcome to the next chapter of this disaster." "We're still disasters," Maya said, squeezing his hand. "The best things usually are," he replied. Maya woke up on her last day in Dubai to a text from Jess that read, "OMG, I just looked up ticket prices from Seattle to New York. They're not as bad as I thought. You should absolutely do this. Also, I want a full report on Billionaire Guy when you get back." She lay in bed for a moment, watching the sun rise over the city from the floor-to-ceiling windows of the suite, and tried to figure out when exactly her life had become something she didn't quite recognize. Ethan was already awake, working on his laptop in the adjoining living area. He'd been doing this every morning, waking early to handle the business side of his life that didn't pause, just because he was having an unexpected romance in Dubai. He looked up when she emerged, and his expression softened in that way that still caught her off guard. "Last day," he said. It wasn't a question. "Last day," Maya confirmed. She settled beside him on the sofa. "Your flight back to New York leaves tonight, right?" 7 p.m., he said. "I'd arranged to stay through tomorrow, but there's an emergency board meeting. Something about quarterly projections and potential investor concerns. Nothing that actually matters, but it's being treated like it matters." "That's very vague," Maya observed. "Intentionally so," Ethan said. "I genuinely don't care. I care significantly more about the fact that you're leaving this afternoon and I'm leaving tonight. And we haven't actually discussed what happens next, beyond vague promises to try long distance." "I've been avoiding that conversation," Maya admitted. "I know," he said. "So have I. It's easier to pretend that time isn't moving. But time is moving, and you have to be at the airport by 4, and I have about 10 hours to make sure we've at least discussed logistics. Vach! They spent the morning doing mundane things, having breakfast on the balcony, going through the process of Maya checking her email, and discovering that the hospital had scheduled her for shifts starting tomorrow, reading the news on Ethan's tablet, while pretending they were just enjoying a regular morning together. But underneath everything was the awareness that this was temporary. That in a few hours Maya would get in a car and drive away, and Ethan would stay behind for a few hours more before driving to the airport himself, heading in a different direction. "I should tell you the complicated things," Ethan said around lunchtime. They were sitting on the balcony, picking at mezza that they'd ordered from room service. "Things I haven't told you because they haven't seemed relevant until now." "What kind of complicated things?" Maya asked warily. "The kind that come with being very rich and moderately famous," Ethan said. "There will be reporters who want to write about us. My ex-girlfriend is going to be very unhappy when she finds out I'm dating someone. My board members will have opinions about my personal life, and long-distance relationships are already difficult without adding the complication of significant wealth disparity and media attention." "Your ex-girlfriend?" Maya hadn't known there was an ex-girlfriend. "Victoria," Ethan said. "We dated for 2 years. She was an investment banker. Very smart, very ambitious, and fundamentally more interested in my money than in me as a person. Which was fine. I knew that going in. But then she started expecting that the relationship would evolve into something more serious, and I had to explain that I didn't actually have the capacity for that level of commitment. She did not take it well." "And she's going to be upset that you're dating me?" Maya asked. "Victoria has a specific idea about who I should date," Ethan said. "Someone from the same socioeconomic sphere. Someone who understands the demands of my lifestyle. Definitely not someone who accidentally boarded my flight and works in an emergency room." "That's fair," Maya said. "By every reasonable standard, I'm a terrible choice for you to date." "You're not," Ethan said firmly. "You're actually the best choice I've made in several years, but understanding that doesn't make it less complicated." They fell quiet. The city sprawled out below them, millions of people living their lives, none of them aware that Maya was sitting on a luxury balcony trying to figure out how to make something impossible work. "I have something to tell you too," Maya said. "Something I haven't mentioned because I wasn't sure how to bring it up, and because yesterday was nice and I didn't want to ruin it." Okay," Ethan said carefully. "I can't afford to fly back and forth between Seattle and New York," Maya said. "I have savings, but not the kind of savings that sustains frequent cross-country flights. A ticket to New York is $270, maybe $300 if I book in advance. That's reasonable. But if I'm going to do this consistently, if I'm going to try to make a long-distance relationship work, I can't be the person who's always going to you. It's not sustainable financially, and it would make me resent you." "I can buy your tickets," Ethan said. "I know you can," Maya said, "and that's not the point. The point is that if you're buying my flights, then I'm in a situation where I'm dependent on you financially, and that creates a power imbalance that I'm not comfortable with. I've never been comfortable with. I need to be able to maintain my own financial independence." "That's not unreasonable," Ethan said, "but it also doesn't have to be an either-or. I can cover flights without you being dependent on me. Think of it as a business expense, the price of maintaining a relationship with someone who lives on the other coast." "That's a romantic way to phrase it," Maya said dryly. "I'm attempting to be practical," Ethan said. "Relationships require compromise. I compromise by flying to Seattle sometimes, instead of expecting you to always come to me. You compromise by accepting that sometimes I can afford to cover costs that you can't. That's not a power imbalance. That's just different resources." "Maybe," Maya said, but she was still uncertain. "Tell me what you're actually worried about," Ethan said. "That this is going to end," Maya said quietly. That we're going to try long distance for a few weeks, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to decide that this is more complicated than it's worth, that I'm too different from your normal life, that I don't fit into your world, and it's exhausting to try to make me fit. That's possible, Ethan said, which was not the reassurance Maya had hoped for. It's also possible that this works. It's possible that I'm tired enough of my normal life that I actually want something different. It's possible that you're exactly what I needed, and we figure out how to make this work despite the complications. You have to understand how this looks, though, Maya said. From the outside, a billionaire picks up a random woman on a plane, takes her to Dubai, puts her in one of the most expensive hotels in the world, and then asks her to try dating him. That's not a love story. That's a rich man playing with a toy. Is that what you think is happening? Ethan asked. I don't know, Maya said. I think something is happening. I think we have chemistry, and you're genuinely interested in me as a person, and I'm genuinely interested in you. But I also think that there are parts of this situation that are undeniably complicated by the fact that you're rich and I'm not. And I think we should probably acknowledge that instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Fair, he said finally. Okay. Let's acknowledge it. I'm rich. You're not. That creates complications. We should talk about those complications explicitly instead of letting them simmer in the background and potentially derail this before it even starts. What happens if you get bored? Maya asked. What's my exit strategy? You can leave whenever you want, Ethan said. You already established that on the plane. If this stops working, if I stop being interesting, or if long distance is too difficult, or if you meet someone in Seattle who's actually there and doesn't require a 6-hour flight, you can end it. No guilt, no complications. Just like that? Just like that, he confirmed. I'm not interested in forcing something that isn't working. I'm interested in seeing if something that feels this right can actually sustain itself in the real world. They went to the mall, not because they particularly wanted to, but because it felt like something they should do on their last day together. They walked through high-end stores and tried on clothes that neither of them would wear. They ate overpriced ice cream. They wandered through a bookstore and picked out books for each other. Ethan chose a novel that was getting critical acclaim and had apparently sold millions of copies. And Maya chose a business book about the intersection of technology and ethics, which Ethan promised to actually read. I'll read yours if you read mine, Maya said. Deal, he replied. At 4 o'clock, Ethan called the driver. They rode to the airport in silence, the kind of silence that happens when there's too much to say and no time to say it. Ethan held her hand the entire drive, and Maya watched the city pass by. Dubai that had become familiar in just 3 days, Dubai that she was leaving behind. At departures, they sat in the car for a few minutes, not getting out. This is the part where I'm supposed to say something romantic and memorable, Ethan said. Something that makes you feel secure about this crazy thing we're doing, but I'm not actually sure what that is. You could just tell me the truth, Maya said. The truth is that I'm terrified, Ethan said. I'm terrified that I'm going to fly back to New York and return to my normal life and realize that this was just a nice interlude that doesn't actually change anything. I'm terrified that you're going to go back to Seattle and realize that I'm not worth the complications. I'm terrified that we're both going to wake up tomorrow and wonder what the hell we were thinking. And? Maya prompted. And I'm also hopeful, he said, which is apparently something I'm capable of feeling, despite evidence to the contrary. I'm hopeful because you exist and you're interesting and you challenge me. I'm hopeful because the last 3 days have felt more real than the last 3 years have felt. And I'm hopeful because you said yes, you'd try, and that means something. I'm terrified too, Maya said, but I'm also hopeful, so maybe that's enough. She kissed him. Their first real kiss, not counting the casual affection of the past few days. It tasted like goodbye and hello and all the complicated things in between. Call me when you land, Ethan said. Text me when you get to the airport, Maya replied. I'm going to miss you, he said. I know, Maya said. I'm going to miss you too, ridiculously, embarrassingly, like I'm going to be in my apartment in Seattle missing a man I've known for 3 days who paid for me to stay at the Burj Al Arab, and I'm not even going to question how insane that is. That's very romantic, Ethan said, in an absurd way. That's us, Maya said, absurdly romantic. She got out of the car before she could convince herself not to. She grabbed her carry-on, which now contained expensive new clothes and books and a silk scarf that Ethan had given her the night before, and headed into the airport without looking back. It took enormous willpower not to look back. The flight back to Seattle was red-eye, which meant that Maya sat in an airplane seat and tried not to think too hard about the fact that she'd boarded a plane to Dubai 4 days ago and was now leaving it. She tried not to think about Ethan sitting in an airplane somewhere else, heading to a different coast, back to a life that didn't include her. Her phone was in airplane mode, so she couldn't text anyone or scroll through social media or do any of the things that normally distracted her on flights. Instead, she sat with her thoughts, which were surprisingly organized for thoughts that should have been chaotic. The truth was that she was terrified. She was terrified that this was going to fall apart. She was terrified that long distance wasn't going to work. She was terrified that she was being naive and that Ethan was going to get bored. But she was also not terrified in a way that surprised her, because she'd spent the last several years playing it safe, working her shifts, maintaining her stable life, avoiding complications. And where had that gotten her? It had gotten her a life that was stable and safe and incredibly crushingly boring. At least this was honest. At least this was real, even if it was also terrifying and complicated and potentially doomed. She landed at SeaTac at 7 in the morning and texted Ethan as the plane was taxiing to the gate. "I'm alive! The flight was brutal, but I survived. How was your flight?" His response came almost immediately. "Still very much in the air over the Atlantic. Will text you when I land. Also, I miss you," which is stupid because it's only been a few hours and we literally just agreed to try this. But I do. So, Maya smiled at her phone like an idiot. A businessman sitting across the aisle gave her a weird look, which she ignored. She made it home to her apartment. A one-bedroom in Capitol Hill that was small and overpriced and was currently piled with laundry and medical journals she'd never finished reading. It had never seemed smaller or more depressing than it did at 7:30 in the morning after spending 3 days in the Burj Al Arab. She showered and changed and sat down at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a sense of unreality. She'd actually done it. She'd accidentally boarded a plane to Dubai and spent 3 days with a billionaire and agreed to try dating him long distance. She'd made what every reasonable person in her life would identify as a series of terrible decisions. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Jess told me what happened. I'm having a small heart attack. Please call me immediately." Another text from Patricia at work. "I heard you're in Seattle, but you didn't come in yesterday? Girl, what is happening?" And another from Ethan. "Landed, currently in an Uber to the office, because apparently there's a crisis that requires my physical presence. Will call you tonight. Try not to regret this while I'm gone." Maya set her phone down and looked around her apartment, at the laundry pile and the medical journals and the general sense of stalled life. And she thought about Dubai. She thought about the desert and the sunset and Ethan's arm around her shoulders at the camp. She thought about how it felt to be someone other than a tired nurse, at least for a few days. She picked her phone back up and texted her mother. "I'm fine. I'll explain everything tonight. But yes, something is happening. I'll tell you about it." Then she texted Patricia. "I took some personal time, back for my next shift." And finally she texted Ethan, not regretting it. "Terrified but not regretting it." His response, "Good, same. Call me when you can. I want to hear about your actual apartment. I'm developing a mental picture and it's probably all wrong." Maya laughed to herself and made a decision. She picked up her phone and called her mom. It was time to explain the Dubai situation. It was time to start living the complicated, terrifying, potentially wonderful version of her life. The first week back in Seattle was harder than Maya expected. She returned to work to discover that the emergency department had descended into controlled chaos in her absence. There had been a multi-vehicle accident on I-5, a gastroenteritis outbreak at a local elementary school, and something that the other nurses vaguely referred to as that situation with the guy who tried to fight security, which apparently involved significant property damage and several people who needed stitches. "You picked the best time to vanish," her colleague Marcus said, handing her a stack of charts for her shift. "Where were you anyway? Jess said something about Dubai." "I accidentally boarded the wrong flight," Maya said, which was the abbreviated version she'd been giving people. "Ended up in Dubai instead of Portland. Spent a few days there. It was weird and spontaneous and completely unlike me." "That's insane," Marcus said, which seemed to be the universal response. "Good for you, though. Everyone needs to do something insane occasionally. Keeps you sane." The irony of that statement was not lost on Maya. Work was grounding in a way that Dubai had not been. The emergency department operated on a logic that made sense. Patients came in, you assessed and treated them, you sent them home or admitted them, or in the worst cases, did everything you could and still lost them. There were protocols and procedures and a clear sense of purpose. There was also very little time to think about the fact that she was attempting to maintain a long-distance relationship with someone she'd known for 4 days. She and Ethan texted constantly. Good morning texts, updates about their days, photographs of things they found interesting. Late-night conversations that happened because neither of them could sleep, and it was more interesting to talk to the other person than to lie awake alone. But texting was not the same as being present. It was a substitute, a placeholder, a reminder of the distance between the East Coast and the West Coast. 2 weeks after Dubai, Ethan called her at midnight Seattle time, which meant it was 3 a.m. in New York. "Why are you awake?" Maya asked by way of greeting. "Board meeting went late," he said. "Then I had a call with investors in Hong Kong. Then I apparently forgot that it was the middle of the night and decided to just stay awake." "Are you working?" "Day shift ends in an hour," Maya said. She was sitting in the break room, eating a sandwich and pretending that 12 hours of standing hadn't made every bone in her body ache. "Why are you still awake if you have to be functional tomorrow?" "Because I wanted to talk to you and I knew you'd be working," Ethan said. "Is that romantic or stupid?" "Both," Maya said. "Definitely both. You need to sleep." "I know," he said. "But I've been trying to schedule a visit and my calendar is completely full. Every single day for the next month is blocked with meetings and conference calls and investor dinners. I'm looking at late February at the earliest before I can get to Seattle." Maya's stomach sank. Late February was more than a month away. They'd been apart for 2 weeks already. "That's okay," she said, because it was the kind thing to say. "We can manage." "It's not okay," Ethan said. "It's terrible. I'm beginning to understand why long-distance relationships are widely considered impossible. This is already difficult, and we've only been apart for 2 weeks." "We knew it was going to be difficult," Maya said, but she was tired, and the ease of Dubai felt very far away. "We talked about this." "I know we did," Ethan said, "but knowing something intellectually and experiencing it are different things. I miss you constantly. I'm in meetings and I'm thinking about you. I'm eating dinner and I'm thinking about you. I wake up and forget for approximately 3 seconds that you're not here, and then I remember, and it's disappointing." "I miss you too," Maya said. "But we're also building a life. You have a company. I have a job. We can't just abandon everything to be together." "I know," Ethan said, and he sounded defeated in a way she'd never heard before. "I know that, but knowing it doesn't make it easier." They talked for another hour, moving from logistics to complaints to the kind of intimate details you share with someone you're sleeping with but can't quite convey through text. It was comforting and heartbreaking at the same time. After they hung up, Maya sat in the break room for another 15 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to ignore the feeling that she'd made a terrible decision in Dubai. 3 weeks into their separation, Ethan's ex-girlfriend Victoria showed up in a page 6 gossip column. The article was titled, "Billionaire Ethan Blackwell's New Love Interest. Who is the Mystery Woman?" It included a photograph of Maya and Ethan at the desert camp, the one that some random tourist had apparently taken and sold to a gossip publication. In the photo, Ethan had his arm around Maya, and she was looking at him with the kind of obvious affection that didn't leave much room for denial. The article didn't know her name. The article didn't know that she was a nurse or that she'd accidentally boarded his flight. But it speculated extensively about who she was and where she'd come from and whether this was serious. More importantly, it included a quote from Victoria. "Ethan has always had unconventional taste. I'm sure this woman is lovely, but I have to wonder if he's thinking clearly. He tends to make impulsive decisions when he's bored." "I'm sorry," was the first thing Ethan said when he called her that evening. "For what?" Maya asked, even though she knew exactly what. "For the fact that my personal life is apparently now gossip column fodder," he said. "I should have anticipated this. I should have prepared you." "How do you prepare someone for the fact that their private moments are being sold to tabloids?" Maya asked. She wasn't angry, or rather, she was, but not at him. She was angry at the invasion, at the presumption, at the fact that something that had felt so genuinely theirs was now public property. "You don't," Ethan said. "That's the answer. You don't. You just accept that this is part of being with me, and you decide if it's worth it." "Is it?" Maya asked. "That's up to you," Ethan said. "Is it worth it?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She was sitting on her couch with her laptop, having just read the article for the 5th time, each read more irritating than the last. Victoria's quote sat in her stomach like a stone. "I don't know," she said finally. "Ask me in a month." But the damage was done. The article had sparked other articles. Entertainment sites started doing deep dives on who Ethan was and who his new girlfriend might be. Someone tracked down Jess's wedding announcement and connected the dots. Wrong flight to Dubai, emergency room nurse, the timing all matching up. By the next morning, Maya's name was attached to articles describing her as the woman who accidentally changed a billionaire's life. Her co-workers had questions. Her mother had many questions. A reporter from a local Seattle news station called the hospital asking for an interview. "I can't do this," Maya said to Ethan that night. "I can't be a gossip column story. I can't have reporters calling my work. I'm a nurse. I need to be anonymous. I need to be the person who shows up and does her job, not the woman who's dating a billionaire." "I know," Ethan said, and he sounded helpless in a way that didn't suit him. "I know this is difficult." "Difficult is an understatement," Maya said. "This is invasive and unwanted, and I didn't sign up for it. You asked me to try long distance. You didn't ask me to become a celebrity gossip story." "You're right," Ethan said. I should have. I should have been upfront about the fact that dating me has consequences. The fact that my life is public affects anyone I date." "I need to think," Maya said. "I need to think about whether this is something I can actually do, because the distance is one thing. But this—" She gestured vaguely at her laptop, at the articles, at the entire situation. "This is another thing entirely." "Okay," Ethan said quietly. "Think. Take whatever time you need." Maya hung up and sat in the dark of her apartment, trying to figure out if she was being reasonable or if she was letting fear drive a decision she would regret. She didn't talk to Ethan for 3 days. It wasn't a planned silence. She just didn't reach out, and he seemed to understand that she needed space. At work, she was distracted. Marcus asked her if she was okay, and she said she was fine, which was a lie. Jess called and wanted details on the whole situation, and Maya gave her abbreviated answers and changed the subject. On the 4th day, she was working a night shift and found a package waiting at the apartment when she got home. It was from a bookstore in New York, the expensive kind that hand-wrapped packages and included a note. The note was in Ethan's handwriting. "I bought every book you mentioned wanting to read. I also bought the book you recommended to me. I've started reading it. I'm on page 47, and I'm already thinking about how it relates to my life, which I hate because you were right about everything. Anyway, these are for you. I hope they make the distance feel less terrible. I also hope you'll call me. I've given you space because I think you deserve it, but I'd prefer not to live in silence. E." The package contained 12 books. 12 books that Maya had mentioned in passing during conversations. 12 books that Ethan had tracked down and ordered and sent to her. She set them on her coffee table and cried, which was embarrassing and also necessary. She called him at 8 in the morning, which meant it was 11 a.m. in New York. "Hi," she said when he answered, as if 3 days hadn't passed. "I got the books." "Do you hate me?" Ethan asked. "No," Maya said. "I hate the situation. I don't hate you. I'm scared. I'm scared that this is going to be too complicated and that I'm going to get hurt and that you're going to get tired of dealing with the distance. I'm scared of being a tabloid story. I'm scared of the power imbalance between us. I'm scared that I made a terrible decision in Dubai." "Did you?" Ethan asked. "Make a terrible decision?" "I don't know yet," Maya said. "I don't think so. But I also don't know if I can actually do this." "What would help?" Ethan asked. "What would make this feel more manageable?" "I don't know," Maya said. "I need to talk to you about the gossip column thing. I need to understand what the long-term implications are. I need to know if this is going to be a constant issue or if it's going to fade. I need to know what I'm actually signing up for." "Fair," Ethan said. "Let me schedule a time when we can actually talk about this. Not late-night text conversations. A real conversation where we both have time to think and respond properly." "Okay," Maya said. "And Maya," Ethan said, "I want you to know that I'm not expecting you to be okay with any of this. If the tabloid attention is a deal-breaker, that's reasonable. If the distance is a deal-breaker, that's reasonable. You don't have to stay because I sent you books." "I know," Maya said. But the books were sitting on her coffee table, and she was already planning to read them, and she didn't want to not talk to Ethan anymore. "I'm not leaving. I'm just processing." "Okay," he said. "Process. I'll be here." The real conversation happened on a Sunday afternoon, with Maya sitting at her kitchen table and Ethan sitting somewhere in his New York penthouse, a place she'd never seen but had visualized approximately 800 times. "The tabloid attention is unpredictable," Ethan said. "It's calmed down significantly in the past few days, but it could ramp up again. That's part of dating someone in my position. It's not fair, and I understand if it's a deal-breaker." "Is it something you can control?" Maya asked. "Not entirely," Ethan said. "I can be more private. I can avoid being photographed with you. I can ask my publicist to push back on stories, but I can't eliminate it completely. My life is public whether I want it to be or not." "What about Victoria?" Maya asked. "Is she going to be a constant problem?" "No," Ethan said. "She's bitter, but she's also moved on. She's dating someone else, a venture capitalist who's apparently much more aligned with her life goals than I was. But she'll probably make comments about me dating you periodically because it bothers her that I moved on faster than she did." "That's petty," Maya observed. "It is," Ethan agreed, "but that's part of being human. People are petty sometimes." They talked for 3 hours. They discussed the logistics of long distance, when they could visit, how often they could afford to, what their timeline looked like for potentially living in the same place. They talked about their jobs and their futures and whether they were compatible in ways that went beyond the initial attraction and chemistry. "I think we are," Ethan said finally. "I think we're compatible. I think this could work, but only if you actually want it to work, not if you're just settling because you feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," Maya said. "I feel terrified. But I also don't want to give up on this. I want to try. Okay, Ethan said. Then we try. And if at any point it becomes too difficult, we talk about it and figure out what comes next. Fair? Fair, Maya said. I'm coming to Seattle, Ethan said. I'm clearing my calendar the week of January 20th. I'm taking a week off, and I'm coming to Seattle, and we're going to spend time together that isn't mediated by screens or time zones. And if the tabloids want to report on it, fine, let them. You're not a secret. What about your board? Maya asked. What about investors? My personal life is my own, Ethan said, with a finality that suggested this was not a debatable point. I've spent the last 13 years prioritizing work over everything else. I've been successful. I'm rich. I'm bored. I'm not doing that anymore. If my board has a problem with me dating a nurse from Seattle, that's their problem. Maya wanted to argue that it was more complicated than that, but she was also tired of complications. She was tired of being reasonable and sensible and afraid. She was tired of making decisions based on what was smart instead of what felt right. Okay, she said. Come to Seattle. I will, Ethan said. And Maya, thank you for not giving up on this. Thank you for staying even though it's difficult and complicated and potentially insane. Thank you for sending me books, Maya said, and for being honest about how complicated this is. That actually helps. Good, he said. I'll call you tomorrow. Get some sleep. You've had a long shift. She hung up and looked at the 12 books on her coffee table, and then she picked one up and started reading. It was going to be okay, she thought. It was going to be difficult and complicated and potentially insane, but it was going to be okay. Ethan arrived at SeaTac Airport on a Tuesday afternoon in January, and Maya discovered that nervousness was apparently something that could be experienced in one's entire body simultaneously. Her hands were shaking, her stomach was in knots, and she was pretty sure her heart was attempting to escape through her ribcage. She hadn't seen him in 5 weeks. 5 weeks of FaceTime calls and text messages and carefully scheduled phone conversations across time zones. 5 weeks of wondering if the connection they'd had in Dubai would translate to reality, or if it had been a beautiful accident that only worked in the specific context of Dubai and billionaire generosity and the surreal bubble of their first meeting. He came through the arrivals gate wearing jeans and a dark sweater, looking exactly like he had in Dubai, but also somehow different, travel-worn, slightly tired, more real. When he saw her, his entire face changed. "Hi," he said, and then he crossed the distance between them and kissed her, right there in the middle of SeaTac Airport, in front of strangers and security cameras and the general public. It was the kind of kiss that answered questions. It was the kind of kiss that made people around them smile, and made a TSA agent wolf whistle from his station, and made Maya forget that she'd been nervous approximately 5 seconds ago. "Hi," she said when they broke apart. "Welcome to Seattle." "Show me everything," Ethan said. "Show me where you live, where you work, where you eat cereal for dinner. Show me your life." Maya's apartment looked very small with Ethan in it. She'd cleaned extensively. The laundry pile was gone, the medical journals were organized, the kitchen was spotless. But the apartment was still a 1-bedroom in Capitol Hill that cost more than it should, and had a kitchen the size of a large closet. It was nothing like the suite at the Burj Al Arab. It was nothing like the penthouse in New York that Ethan had described over FaceTime. "I like it," Ethan said, looking around with genuine interest. He picked up a framed photograph from her bookshelf. Maya and Jess in college, both of them laughing at something. "This is your friend from the wedding." "That's Jess," Maya confirmed. "I should warn you that she wants to meet you. She has approximately 900 questions, and she's not subtle about asking them." "I'd like to meet her," Ethan said. "I'd like to meet the people in your life. I want to understand your world." They spent the evening doing mundane things. They went to Pike Place Market and bought ingredients for dinner. Ethan had apparently decided to cook, which seemed audacious given that he'd admitted to eating takeout for approximately the last decade. They made pasta with fresh vegetables and sauce from scratch, and it was messy and imperfect and wonderful. "This is nice," Ethan said, stirring the sauce. "Just existing with you, not performing, not doing anything significant, just being." "Whoa, this is what my life is normally like," Maya said. "It's very boring." "It's peaceful," Ethan corrected. "There's a difference between boring and peaceful. My life is interesting. It's also very rarely peaceful." They ate dinner on Maya's small balcony, overlooking the Capitol Hill neighborhood as it settled into evening. They talked about the week ahead. Maya had arranged her schedule so she could have several days off, though she'd need to work a couple of shifts. Ethan had technically not arranged any work commitments, but they both knew that wasn't entirely true. Technology made it difficult to truly be unreachable. "If there's an emergency at your company, you need to handle it," Maya said. "Don't try to pretend that you don't have responsibilities." "I know," Ethan said. "I'm trying to compartmentalize. Work stays in New York. This week is for us. But if something urgent happens, I'll take the call." "Of course you will," Maya said. "That's who you are. You're someone who takes calls. You're someone who builds things and solves problems and can't actually turn it off. I get that." "Do you?" Ethan asked. "Because sometimes I feel like you're waiting for me to suddenly become someone different, someone who's not obsessed with work, someone who can just abandon everything." "I'm not waiting for that," Maya said. "I'm accepting that about you and hoping that occasionally you'll choose us instead." They went to bed early, and for the first time in 5 weeks, Maya woke up next to someone. It was disorienting in a good way. The way Ethan's arm was thrown across her waist, the way he smelled like sleep and the shower he'd taken the night before, the way he opened his eyes and smiled at her without saying anything. "Good morning," she said. "It is," he agreed. "It absolutely is." Wednesday was supposed to be a pleasant day of showing Ethan around Seattle. They planned to visit the Space Needle, walk through Pike Place again with less purpose and more aimlessness, maybe get coffee at a small cafe that Maya loved. Instead, Ethan's phone rang at 8 in the morning. He looked at it and his entire body language shifted. "I have to take this," he said. Maya nodded and went into the other room, giving him privacy. She could hear him talking, his voice professional and controlled, using language about server infrastructure and security protocols that she didn't entirely understand. The call lasted 17 minutes. When he came back into the bedroom, he looked shaken. "What happened?" Maya asked. "We've had a data breach," Ethan said. "Someone accessed our systems. It's not catastrophic, but it's serious. I need to get back to New York. I need to be there to manage this." Maya's stomach sank. "When?" "Today, if possible," he said. "The earliest flight I can get is at 2 p.m. They had approximately 5 hours left of their week together. "Okay," Maya said, because what else could she say? This was the reality of dating someone like Ethan. This was the complicated part that they'd discussed abstractly, but were now experiencing in concrete form. They didn't go to the Space Needle. They didn't get coffee at her favorite cafe. Instead, they packed Ethan's suitcase and sat on her couch and tried not to waste their remaining time by being upset about the situation. "I'm sorry," Ethan said for approximately the 15th time. "Stop apologizing," Maya said. "This is your job. This is your responsibility. I understand. But I don't want to leave," Ethan said. "This was supposed to be our week. We were supposed to actually be together." "We were together," Maya said. "We were together for about 18 hours. That's not nothing." "It's not enough," Ethan said. "It's nowhere near enough." "I know," Maya said, "but this is the thing about us. This is what it's going to be like sometimes. Your job is going to demand things. My job is going to demand things. We're not going to get perfect timing." "What if perfect timing never comes?" Ethan asked. "What if it's always like this? What if I'm always leaving? What if this doesn't actually work because the distance is too great and the complications are too much?" "Then we figure it out," Maya said. "Or we don't. But I'm not giving up just because of 1 week getting cut short. That's not what this is." "What is this?" Ethan asked. It's the hard part, Maya said. It's the part after the romance fades and you realize that two people can be genuinely interested in each other and still have logistical problems. But we're both choosing to try anyway. Ethan was quiet for a moment, and then he pulled her close and held her like he was trying to memorize the feeling of having her next to him. They went to the airport together, and it was slightly easier the second time, probably because they both knew that this wasn't the end. They'd made it past Dubai. They'd made it past the tabloid phase. They'd made it past the first real crisis. "When can you come to New York?" Ethan asked as they stood at the departure gate. "I have a week off in March," Maya said. "I could probably do that." "Okay," he said. "March. We'll make it work. We'll have a full week with no emergencies, and we'll actually be together." "You can't promise that," Maya said. "I can try," he said. "I'm going to try very hard to make sure nothing blows up in the week you come to New York." "Okay," Maya said. "Try. I appreciate the effort, even if it's ultimately not in your control." He kissed her again, and people moved around them. Other people saying goodbye, other people arriving, other people living their lives in the chaos of an airport. "I love you," Ethan said. "I don't think I've told you that yet. I think I should tell you that before I leave." Maya froze. "You love me?" "I love you," he confirmed. "I love you because you're honest and capable and you see me as a person instead of a bank account. I love you because you accidentally changed my life by boarding the wrong flight. I love you because you make me want to be someone who has time for things beyond work. I love you." "I love you too," Maya said, because it was true and also because saying it felt necessary. "I love you even though you're leaving. I love you even though this is complicated. I love you." "Good," he said. "Hold on to that while I'm gone. I'll hold on to it too." The data breach took 3 weeks to fully resolve. Ethan was in the office constantly, overseeing the forensic investigation, managing the public relations crisis, making decisions about how to handle the situation and inform affected customers. There were regulatory agencies to contact, and lawyers to consult, and board members to appease. But he also texted Maya constantly. Updates about work, observations about his day, random thoughts that he wanted to share with her. He called her late at night when he was exhausted and frustrated. He sent her photographs of things that reminded him of her. Maya watched him handle the crisis from a distance, and she was impressed by his competence and also deeply sad about the fact that he was clearly a person who thrived on this kind of high-stakes problem-solving. She wondered if he would ever be truly happy in a life that didn't involve constant crises to manage. But she also watched him make time for her, watched him carve out space in his impossibly full schedule to talk to her, to think about her, to plan for when they could see each other again. By the time they'd resolved the crisis, a disgruntled former employee who'd sold security credentials to a competitor, caught and prosecuted and dealt with. It was mid-February. Maya's March week off was approaching. Ethan was talking about clearing his schedule, which seemed to mean something different now that she understood how his life actually worked. "I'm sorry about the week," Ethan said on a video call, 2 weeks after he'd left Seattle. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." "I did sign up for it," Maya said. "We talked about this. I chose this. You chose this. We're making it work." "We are," Ethan agreed. "But I'm wondering if you're actually okay with it, or if you're just being supportive while secretly regretting everything." "I'm okay with it," Maya said. "I would obviously prefer if you didn't have to leave mid-visit and deal with crises. But I also respect that your company is important and that you're good at what you do. Those things are part of why I love you." "Okay," Ethan said. "I wanted to make sure, because I've been thinking about something." "What?" Maya asked. "What if you didn't have to live in Seattle?" Ethan asked. "What if you came to New York?" "My job is in Seattle," Maya said. "My friends are in Seattle. My life is in Seattle." "I know," Ethan said, "but there are hospitals in New York. There are excellent hospitals in New York. And you would have a job that's significantly better compensated. And I would be there." "You want me to move?" Maya asked slowly. "I want you to consider it," Ethan said. "Not immediately. Not before you visited and made sure you actually like me in person and not just via FaceTime. But I want that to be an option. I want you to know that I'm not asking you to do long distance forever. I'm asking you to consider a future where we're actually in the same place. That's a big thing to ask, Maya said. I know, Ethan said, but I'm asking anyway. Think about it. No pressure, but think about it. Maya arrived at JFK Airport on a Friday afternoon in March with a suitcase and approximately 17 different emotional states competing for dominance in her chest. She hadn't told Ethan that she'd been quietly researching New York hospitals. She hadn't told him that she'd looked up neighborhoods and apartments and made mental notes of places that seemed nice. She hadn't told him that she was actually seriously considering the possibility of moving. But she'd also wanted to wait until she saw him in person. She wanted to know if the feeling from Dubai could be sustained in New York. She wanted to make sure that what they had was real before she made massive life decisions. Ethan was waiting at arrivals, and when he saw her, he smiled in a way that answered approximately half of her questions. "Hi," he said, pulling her into a kiss that was urgent and relieved and full of the specific happiness of people who've missed each other. "Hi," Maya said when they broke apart. "I'm here for a week." "You're here," he agreed. "And you're not leaving until next Saturday. 7 days. I've blocked my calendar. Nothing is getting in the way of this." "Nothing?" Maya asked skeptically. "Almost nothing," he amended. "If the company literally catches fire, I might have to check my email. But otherwise, you have my full attention." He took her to the penthouse, which was exactly as impressive as she'd imagined. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the kind of space that made her apartment in Seattle look like a dollhouse. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's empty," Ethan said. "It's a place where I sleep sometimes, but with you here, it feels like a home." They spent the week doing things that mattered. They went to museums and restaurants and walked through Central Park. They met some of Ethan's colleagues for dinner, which was terrifying but also went better than Maya expected. They went to his office, and she got to see him in his element, solving problems, making decisions, being the exact person she'd always suspected he was. But more importantly, they just existed together. They cooked breakfast together on Sunday morning. They watched a movie without checking their phones. They sat on his balcony and watched the sunset over Manhattan, and Ethan told her about his vision for the company's future. And Maya told him about the difficult patients she'd dealt with and the way that emergency medicine was simultaneously rewarding and soul-crushing. "I've been thinking about what you said," Maya told him on their last night, "about me moving to New York." "Yeah?" Ethan asked carefully. "I'm not going to move immediately," Maya said. "I need to finish out my contracts at my current hospital. I need to arrange transfer certifications. I need to do it right. But I think I want to do it. I think I want to try living in the same city as you and see if we can actually build something sustainable." "Really?" Ethan asked, and he sounded surprised, like he'd made the offer without expecting her to actually take it. "Really?" Maya said. "But I need this to be clear. I'm not moving for you. I'm moving because I want to live in New York, and because there are excellent hospitals here, and because I'm genuinely interested in building a life that's bigger than what I had in Seattle. You're part of the reason I'm doing it, but you're not the only reason." "I understand," Ethan said, "and I'm okay with that. That's actually better. I don't want you to move for me. I want you to move because it's what you want." "It is," Maya said. "It's terrifying, and I'm going to miss Seattle, and I'm going to need time to adjust. But it's what I want." Ethan pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for choosing this. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for not giving up on me even when the distance was difficult," Maya said. "Thank you for sending books and calling late and being honest about how complicated this was." "We made it work," Ethan said. "We actually made it work."